Labor's line that they don't want to give a running commentary on the Royal Commission is sort of their version of on water matters for the government. I think it just buys them an extra day or two. Look, Bill Shorten has got a problem if it transpires that he signed off on deals that favoured the unions over the workers. As though industrial lawyers have pointed out this morning, there's nothing illegal about that. No. But nevertheless, it's not a good look, and it could be seen as improper and immoral. But there's certainly enough there for the government to make a lot of it, and I think they will. And if it transpires that that's the way it worked, that will sit very uncomfortably on Bill Shorten's record. It could go further than that, though. If in the Herald Sun this morning, they had a story that goes back to 2003 in the Coal Royal Commission. And Bill Shorten was giving evidence there under oath. And he was asked a direct question, did employers pay membership fees for workers who had not filled out union application forms? And he denied that. Now, it may be that what is crucial to that is that they had not filled out union application forms. They may have paid them to existing unions. I don't know what he was denying at the time. But nevertheless, that story, I think, does suggest that he has got some difficult questions to answer.
Bill Shorten not ruling out appearing at the Royal Commission if he's asked, Barrie?
Yes, that'll be interesting, and I think that would delight the government if it was to come to that. I think the idea that it goes back to when Bob Hawke was first Prime Minister and was dragged before a Royal Commission, and even though he handled it well at the time, it was an unusual event, and for Bill Shorten to go before a Royal Commission while opposition leader, I think would get a lot of media attention.
The other key politician in the gun this week, of course, is the Treasurer, Joe Hockey. After those comments on housing, I bet he can't wait for the weekend to start, Barrie.
Yes, but then there'll be something else next week. Look, really, there's just been a run on Joe Hockey. At the very least, what he said was insensitive. But apart from that, it was unhelpful. What was the point of saying to people, as some sort of solution to a housing affordability problem, go and get yourself a higher paid job? How many people out there in lower paid work would get a higher paid job if they could, if it was available to them? So it's virtually useless in terms of a piece of advice. The other point about the Financial Review yesterday had figures about if you did go out and get a higher paid job, how much would you need to earn? And working on the basis that you have to commit 30% of your after-tax salary towards your mortgage, in Sydney you would need to earn $150,000 to get into the housing market at the average level, and in Melbourne $115,000. So when he says go and get a better job, he means a seriously better job.
Yeah.
And these comments coming at a time too, and Glenn Stevens was basically saying he's concerned about the property prices in Sydney. You've got the Secretary-Treasurer John Fraser warning of a bubble.
Yeah.
Bad timing for Joe Hockey.
And it's got the government a real fix about this, because Josh Frydenberg at the weekend on Insiders said that he didn't believe there was a bubble in the Sydney market. I guess it comes down to what is the definition of a bubble. There is no clear definition, but nevertheless there is a problem, and some very heavy hitters are advising the government of that fact.
Barrie, the Prime Minister has, dare I say, been tilting at windmills this week.
Look, this is... there are two aspects of this. First of all, I think a lot of people would say hear to what he said in terms of these being an ugly, being a blot on the landscape, and that the health thing is an open question. There's no proof that there is any health that's detrimental to their health in any way. Nevertheless, it's something that concerns a lot of people. Having said that, in the way that he raised it, I think he reduced his credibility both on alternative energy and on climate change in general by saying that he'd prefer that these things were far fewer in number.
And then talking about winding back, or at least reducing the renewable energy target, basically saying that if that was reduced, therefore you wouldn't need too many of these things, I think was the quote, things on the landscape. Yeah,
it just goes to the whole question of how committed he is to these issues, and there are doubts about that anyway in the minds of many people, and this just feeds into that.
Now, the same-sex marriage debate continues to bubble away, Barrie.
Yep. Look, I think the interesting development this week is that the more conservative people within the Liberal and National parties are going to fight this harder than perhaps people realised. And they're going to make it a real test of Tony Abbott's commitment. Tony Abbott has told Warren Inch, for example, who supports gay marriage, that this thing would be resolved in the spring session of the Parliament. But others are suggesting that that he might entertain the idea of pushing it back beyond the next election. So he will need to be clear, I think, in terms of what he's telling either side of the argument.
What about the numbers, Barry? You were writing in the Drum yesterday. I think The Guardian had numbers, the House of Reps 11 for, 37 against, 42 undecided. 42 is a lot of people.
That's within the coalition, yes.
Yeah, and then how does the Senate work into that?
Well, see, that's the House of Representatives, and I think the pushback in the Senate will be even more so, because the senators are driven pretty much by the members in a way that perhaps whereas those in the House will be influenced by the electorate, the senators will be influenced by the members, and the Liberal and National Party members are far more conservative than the electorate generally. And so I think that factor will kick in and make the numbers that much tougher in the Senate for those who support gay marriage.
And finally, a wooden spoon. What is, in fact, we've got some tape of them, Barry. Let's have a look.
Have a listen to this, Minister.
Sarah Hanson Young is just the worst ever. She makes Bob Brown even look kind of clever. Talk about a half-wit, gee, she looked like a drip. Sea Patrol is fiction, ma'am.
It's beyond my comprehension that she has any credibility in any major issue pertaining to our country.
You know well, Ray, you know well.
Now, the background of this is that Sarah Hanson-Young, there was a suggestion she was spied on in Nauru. The government and Peter Dutton described her as an embarrassment to the country, and then it turns out that she was. That in fact some staff from a security firm have been disciplined for following her around. Rather than apologise or accept that he got it wrong, Peter Dutton then goes on radio and further ridicules her, and she's described as the dumbest politician in Australia and a half-wit. The point here, I think, to make about Peter Dutton is that he is the minister who could very well determine whether or not you keep your citizenship. Of all of the politicians in the country who should resist this perception of running vendettas against individuals, it's him.
Yep.
And yet twice this week we've seen it with Gillian Triggs and now with Sarah Hanson-Young. It's not a good look.
Good stuff, Barry. As always, look forward to Insiders at 9 o'clock on ABC TV and ABC News 24.
Thank you.
See you soon, Barry.